that title, Babylon or Babylon the Great. One of them is the religious side of that, the other one is the financial side, and then the other one is the political side. So so that system is going to be encompassed in those three little branches. All right, and in those three branches, we already looked at the destruction of the religious side of that. All right, and we talked about how throughout history there have been nations that rise. The Bible even mentions these nations that rise. And we looked at these world powers: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Greece, the Medo-Persia. They came after Babylon. Medo-Persia, the Greeks. Where are we at now? How many is that? And then Rome. And then there's going to be two more still yet to come. One is going to be the Antichrist is going to be involved in. We looked at that in chapter 17. He's going to be involved in, he's going to help create that, and this is the ecumenical government, the ecumenical religious system that encompasses numerous idols, numerous variations of worship. And if you go back and look in Egypt, what type of gods do they have in Egypt? They worshiped the Nile River. They worshiped idol gods. They worshiped nature. They worshiped those things. So you keep going. You go to Babylon, same type thing. They called them different things, but same type thing. Then you go to the Greeks. Now remember, the Greeks, what do they have? They had their Greek gods, Zeus and Apollo and Aphrodite and who else? I can't think of any more. Neptune, and all those different gods that they had and that they worshipped, and so you have all of this coming up through all of human history. And where does all these religions, where do they originate from? Anybody remember? Oh man, come on, it's going to be another night like that. So where do all of these religions, where does it originate from? At Babel, the Tower of Babel. Again, the root of that, Babel, and then where do we get the word Babylon? Okay, and so all this is the same area, and this is where it all originated from. And so you have all of these religions that were separated when Babel took place, and God dispersed the languages and all that, and they had their different gods that they served. And now all of these are coming back together under one umbrella, all right, of religion. That the Antichrist is going to be involved in. And then the Antichrist, he's involved in it, but then the midpoint of the tribulation is he's going to turn his back on that system, all right, and no longer are they going to be worshiping these idol gods or the self, or the Romans, that's who they worship. They worship self. They had other gods that they named, but that was a lot of ego within the Roman Empire, okay? And so, but in all of that, under that one umbrella, he's going to turn his back on that to turn the attention back to himself to be worshipped as God. Remember, he's going to die and resurrect as a mockery of the Christ's death and resurrection, and there's going to be supernatural things that happen, and all of that is going to be, again, to turn focus back to the Antichrist. So that one system, all that ecumenical system with all the religions encompassed into one, is going to be done away with about midpoint of the tribulation, and then at the midpoint there's going to be another one established, and we went through that in chapter 17. And that other one's going to be established to strictly worship the Antichrist, and then God's going to destroy all of that. And we looked at that in chapter 17. Now we're getting into chapter 18, and this is the economic leg of Babylon. All right, and again, this economic leg is going to be unlike, what's interesting even now. I want you to think. Let's go back 200 years, 100 years, 200 years. Let's go back 200 years. The economy how much did the economy in China affect the United States 200 years ago? What about Russia's economy? Did it affect the U.S. back then? What about the European? All right, but now let's fast forward a little bit. And does Japan's economy affect the United States? Does the United States economy affect the rest of the world? All right, so do you see how all of these economies that were individual economies with trade and commerce and all those things, and now it is not just all these isolated economies, there is a world economy. And oil has a lot to do with that. And we'll look at a lot of these things, but as we read through here. So we're looking at an economy that in the time of Revelation that is going to come under the Antichrist, that is going to be controlled by the Antichrist, this economic system, all right, that falls under Babylon. And again, God is going to destroy this. Men trust in their goods and their wealth and their power and all those kind of things, and God is going to undermine it and it's going to be done away with. And the Bible says in one day it's going to be undone. And interesting, isn't that? You know, they spend, let's talk about retirement for a minute. How many of us have spent years and years and years trying to build a little nest egg, you know, for when we get to retirement age, you know, we get there and get there and get there. Well, guess what? In this time, people are going to do that. They're going to be making money everywhere, and then one day it's going to be gone. And it's going to be worthless. So anyway, let's read chapter 18. And it says, "And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." A hateful bird. Interesting, huh? "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Remember her, even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she had filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Standing afar off, the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stone, and of pearls and fine linen, and purple and silk and scarlet, and all thyine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots, and slaves and the souls of men. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stone and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster, and in all company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth. So, again, I hope that was pretty self-explanatory. I don't think there's a lot to be, we're going to go through this, of course, but this is not a whole lot of symbolism. I think you can understand that one fairly well. This is the economic system that God's going to bring to an end. Man has built this under the power of Antichrist and the power of Satan, have built this to the point where pride and arrogancy is at its peak, and men lust for things. Do you think men lust for things now? It's going to be even more so in this time. And all of that is going to be done away with. Not the lust part. They're going to still lust at it, but they're not going to be able to get it, and because it's going to be done away with. Now, I want us to think for a minute all the plagues that we've looked at up to this point, and what these plagues have targeted. Now, all right, so where do men make money? Let's talk about commerce for a minute. Where do men make money? How do they make money on a grand scale? All right, so we have factories that make things, but then those things come from resources, right? All right, so let's talk about how we gather resources. Are there resources and food gathered from the sea? Okay. Now, what has happened to the sea at this point? It's turned to blood. All right, it has turned to blood. So, and what I'm saying to you, that what we're reading about here in chapter 18 has been coming all along. You got what I'm saying? It's been coming. And so we're looking back at some of this, and we're saying, okay, now it's the end of it. I mean, they're not getting any more fish out of it. They're not getting any more resources out of it. All right, so we have that. We have the sea. Now, what about the land? What has happened to the land at this point? Or let me just say it this way. What has happened to green things? They're burnt. All right, where do we get most of our food? Fields, trees, fruit, vegetables. So what has happened now? All that's gone. All right, what about the air? You know, I find this interesting, is that, you know, there's a big push, you know, in the last many years about solar power and wind power and all that. If you remember, this is earlier back in the book of Revelation, but there is a time when the angels hold back all the winds. Remember that? All right. So there's no electricity being generated from the wind. Now, what about the solar? Remember, there's a big push for solar. Man, they're building solar farms everywhere. What happens to the sun during this time? All right, and so it's going to be darkened. And so what happens with the air? I mean, the air quality and all of that. I mean, it's gone. All right, all that's gone. What about fresh water? We have freshwater lakes, and what has happened with the water? It's turned to blood. I mean, so you have all of this. Now, what about the labor pool? And I haven't really hit this that hard, but what has happened to the labor pool up to this point? If you go back and read, I think it's chapter 6 and then chapter 9, I think. Don't hold me to that. But there's 1/3 of the population that dies. And then again, there's another third that dies. All right, so now half of the population has been killed. All right? Over half the population of the earth. Now, what happens when you kill half what would happen to the United States? What would happen to all of our infrastructure, our businesses, our warehouses, all those kind of things, our factories? What would happen if half the people, all of a sudden, were dead? What would happen? I mean, it would decimate a lot of these industries and a lot of these things. And so now, all right, so all these plagues are happening. You got what I'm saying? All these plagues. But then it also, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me find, okay. Look in verse number 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be partakers of her sin, that ye receive not her plagues." So it's almost as though there were some plagues in addition to what we've already read that were specifically toward Babylon. And when I say Babylon, that is the system that the Antichrist has created. Does that make sense? Her plagues. So it's almost as though something specific is designed just to target what the Antichrist has created. All right, and so anyway, so there's judgment that is announced in the first couple verses. There, judgment is announced. And again, this angel come down, and the earth was lighted with his glory. Remember, there's darkness. The sun has darkened. The moon has darkened. The stars have darkened. And we talked about this. Some people think that it might be some type of nuclear thing that scorches the atmosphere. Whether that's true or not, we can't say for certain. But I do know all the destruction that has gone on in the earth. You remember all these volcanic eruptions, mountains being fall down, earthquakes, islands being removed, all this stuff. There's so much stuff in the air. I mean, it could just be, what happened, let me ask you this, what happens when a volcano erupts? For miles and miles and miles, I mean, there's nothing but an ash cloud, and people that are in that, I mean, the sun is darkened. You know, it could even be something like that. Who knows? Who knows? But nevertheless, so this judgment is being pronounced or announced, and it says, and he cried, verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. That's an interesting terminology there, isn't it? It just basically, it's become a wasteland. That thing that was once the commercial hub of the world is annihilated. They're announcing this. It's going to be done no more. As a matter of fact, it even says, as we read through there, it's not going to be started anymore. It's going to be gone forever, never to be resurrected, never to be brought up again. God's going to do away with it completely and utterly, and he's going to destroy this economic system that man has built. I wrote down a verse here, chapter 16, verse number 9. Oh, yeah. Remember this. And men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. So in the middle of all this going on, as we get down through here, they're saying, oh, Babylon, Babylon. They're not repenting. They're lamenting the point that their economic system is gone. That's the only thing that they're worried about. So the judgment is announced, and then we get down... again, the people that are involved, verse number 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants and of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So these people that are left that have bought in and been deceived by the Antichrist, what's happening financially to them? Oh man, it feels good. I mean, they're being enriched greatly. I mean, they're being blessed because financially because they're following the Antichrist. But let me just say this: that the Antichrist, Satan. Let me say this: Satan, he always promises things, right? He always promises things, but the things that Satan always promises always ends bad. All right, let's think about it. All right, let's just talk about a sin. Let's talk about lust. It mentions lust here. Let's just say, and I'll use myself as an example. I won't use any of you. Let's just say I had my eye on another woman, and I decided to go mess around with another woman. Now, is that sin? Oh, but if Satan in my mind could say, "Oh man, it'll be fun." Oh man, she's good looking, and you know, and all these mindsets that the devil plays. But what would happen at the end of that? Well, my job would be gone, and rightly so, all right, and rightly so. My job would be gone, my marriage would be broken up, my kids would be heartbroken. I mean, it would just leave a wave of destruction, wouldn't it? All right, but in the beginning, man, oh man, it looks so good. But I'm just saying, Satan always promises good things in the beginning. Just like, you remember, I don't even see them much anymore. You remember the old beer commercials that used to have? Man, you drink this certain type of beer right here. Man, you're going to have babes all around. You remember that? Man, you got these babes. Oh, man, it's just a wonderful time. You know what I'm talking about? You remember those commercials, don't you? It's just, oh, live it up. The high life. You remember that? Oh, but then what they don't show is the DUIs and you killed somebody in a wreck, or the home has been broken, or, they don't show that. All they show is the upfront part, But that's the way Satan is. Well, Satan is deceiving them. All right, he's deceiving them. They don't want the truth. They don't want God, and he's deceiving them. Hey, man, look it up, live it up. You got money, man. That's great, wonderful. Guess what? Guess what's going to happen? The rug is going to be pulled out from under it, and reality is going to set in. And so judgment is coming. And let's go down to verse number 6. Reward her even as she rewarded you. Now, again, this is specifically speaking to the saints, I believe. Reward her as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works. In the cup she had filled to her double. In other words, it goes down and it talks about the prophets and the saints. It talks about that. The apostles. It talks about, well, what has the Antichrist, what has this system done to believers? Anybody remember? What has it done to believers? You remember? What happens if you don't take the mark? They've been suffering. Not only that, is that they have been slaughtered. They have been killed. They have been butchered. I mean, you can say it anyhow you want to say it. There has been genocide on a scale like the world has never seen against believers. And now God is saying, okay, because of what you've done, because of what now they're in turn going to get double. Whatever they've done, they're going to get double. What evil they've done, they're going to get double. And now, remember earlier on in the book of Revelation, there was somebody that was calling for vengeance. Anybody remember those verses? And they were actually crying, and they were saying, how long, Lord, are you going to allow this to happen? How long are you going to, not answer for our blood? How long are you going to allow this to continue? You remember that? That was the saints doing that. Well, now there's somebody else joining in, and the angels are actually saying something. Look what it says. Let me back up to verse number 4. There's an angel. The angel is talking. Remember in verse number 1, the angel is talking there, and he's saying, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. What has she been dishing out? She's been dishing out torment. She's been dishing out sorrow. She's been dishing out death. That's what deception. And now she's going to, and now there's a call being called to give out double. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen. Now what does this mean? What is a queen? Now when you think about a queen, how does a queen sit? No. A queen sits in pride. We're speaking, this is the way it's being looked at, because it clarifies, and am no widow. In other words, I don't have need of anything. I don't need anybody else. Like a widow sometimes, will a widow need help from time to time? And the New Testament talks about that. But this one, she's saying, I don't need anything from anybody. I'm self-sufficient. I'm self-sustaining. I'm a queen. I got everything I need. I got power I need. I got influence I need. I've got everything at my beck and call. And then she says, and shall see no sorrow. In other words, I am above anything. Nothing can happen to me. I'm set. This is the attitude. This is the attitude that they have. And anyway, power, pride, self-sufficient, invincible, and self-exaltation. And so this is the attitude, and there's a call, again, from the angels to, not only from the saints that we heard early on, but now a call from the angels, hey, God, let's do this thing. Let's end this. Let's go ahead and reward them for what they've done. And but then, look what it says here. Therefore, verse number 8, shall her plagues come in one day. Now, remember, we looked at trumpet judgments. We looked at the seal judgments. And now we're kind of on the tail end where the bowl judgments are. And these bowl judgments, it is not sprinkled out. It is poured out. Remember that? It is poured. So this is sudden happenings. It is poured out. And this comes in a day. And then it says death and mourning and famine and shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Now look, the world is going to look at the Antichrist and marvel at his power that he has. It's going to be satanically charged, supernaturally charged. And but let me explain, is that whose power overrides all of it? The devil can't do anything without God's allowing. The devil can't. He can override it. You understand? He can override anything. He's the most powerful. And so they're about to see. They've heard what power is. The witnesses have tried to explain it, but now they're about to see it. All right? They're about to see it. And in one day, this system, this economic system. You remember back, I think it was in the 30s, 39 maybe. Do you remember the stock market crash? I think they called that Black Friday or something like that. And oh man, I mean, people lost fortunes in one day. Remember? Well, you don't remember that, but you've read about it, right? And some of you might remember. I don't know. But anyway, and fortunes were lost in one day. Now, think about our stock market. A lot of our retirement accounts, a lot of our investment accounts are tied to that. What would happen if all of a sudden it all tanked? I mean, look, in the 30s when that happened, people were committing suicide. They were jumping out of buildings. Man, they lost their whole fortunes. I mean, it was just, that's how important money is to them. All right? And this is how important that money is to this group in the book of Revelation here. And so, but anyway, it's going to be changed in a day. And by the way, it mentions that verse number 10. We already looked at that. In verse number 8, it says, "Come in one day." Verse number 10, "Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come." All right, so we go from a day to an hour. All right, then verse 16. "And saying, Alas, alas, the great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught." Verse 19, "And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein we were made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reason of the costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate." I think God is trying to bring emphasis to something. What do you think? He says a day, and then 3 times he says an hour, an hour, an hour. In other words, I mean, just like that, in just a short period of time, all the wealth that has been amassed, all the system of commerce and everything is going to be done away with all at one time, 1 hour. Now let's look at these plagues here, and there's some groups that are lamenting here, that are grieving, and let's look here. Look in verse number 9. "And the kings of the earth," so that's one group, "who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning." Now remember how many kings are in this confederacy that we looked at last week? How many? There's 10. There's 10 kings, or in ever how they divide the earth at this point. There's 10 kings that have given the Antichrist all their influence, all their power, all their resources. They support him in every way. And now they have bought into the deception, hook, line, and sinker. They're all in. And now all of a sudden, all that they have invested, all that they have put in behind the Antichrist, what happens? It's gone. And so now the kings are lamenting, not lamenting because they have not repented, not lamenting because they've not chosen, they've not turned to Christ. What are they lamenting? Oh, Babylon is gone. Oh man, all our stuff is gone. The way we make money is gone. All of our abundance is gone. That's what they're lamenting. All that they stood with, now they see crumbling and burning, and the world economy is falling apart. I wrote down a verse here. Verse number 3, again, it says it again. "For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." Again, and this is what they're lamenting. All that's good life, that ease of life, that's what they're lamenting. There's no market. Let's see, hold on. And then there's a second group. So we have the kings of the earth, the leaders there. And then look down in verse number 11. And it says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn for her, over her. What are they weeping and mourning for? Their sin? They're turning from truth? Christ? What are they? They're mourning over the great city. Shall weep and mourn over, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So now you have another group that's the merchants. And what are these merchants lamenting? Hey, I can't make money anymore. All my stuff is burned up. All my stuff is gone. That whole system is being done away with. And then it lists 28 things there of goods, gold, silver, stones, pearl, and so on and so forth. I won't read all those for sake of time. But all those things there, all the goods and all the resources, they're gone. They're not going to be sold anymore. There's no market. They can't sell it. They're bankrupt. Look in verse 14. And the fruits that thy soul lusteth at are departed from thee. This is bankruptcy. I mean, it is completely bankrupt. They can't buy and sell the stuff that they want, that they desire to have. They can't get it anymore. It's all gone. It's all gone. And all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. It's gone. It's not there anymore. The merchandise of these things which are made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment. Weeping at what? Why are they weeping and wailing? It's because they can't have what they want. And saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches has come to naught. And every shipmaster, so here's another, now you had merchants like business owners. Now you have the logistics, you have the distributors, you have the shipments. And every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many trade by sea stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads. Now, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but when they cast dust, this is a way of mourning. Job did this. He was in such desperate times, he would throw dust and ashes on top of them as a way of mourning. Sometimes they would do this at funerals and things like that, but it symbolizes deep despair over what has transpired. But that's what that is. Where were we at? Okay, verse 18, and cried with a loud voice, smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto thee, the great city? They cast dust on their head and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice. Now hold on now. Now it changes. This talking is given the perspective of the merchants, is given the perspective of the distributors, is given the perspective of the kings, and now it's saying here, rejoice. Now hold on a second. Rejoice in the middle of all this? Rejoice over her, thou heaven. So who is this? Now it's given a different perspective here. Who is this talking about? It's talking about the saints that are in glory, the angels that are there, all the ones on God's side, and it says, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. You remember all that the saints have been crying out for. God, how long are you going to allow this to happen? How long are you going to allow this sin to go unpunished? How long are you going to allow this rampant wickedness to go unchecked? And now it's finally being undone. It's finally being done away with. And you remember the verse, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Remember that? You don't have to take things into your own hands. God eventually is going to deal with it. It may not be in the timing you want, but he will deal with it eventually. And so here it is. And so they're rejoicing. And so let me say, that may sound harsh, but let me ask you something. Is it let's just say you have something. Let me use an extreme example. Let's just say you have a man who does something horrific with a child. And let's just say he gets sentenced to death. Now, this can be bittersweet. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we're glad he's caught. We're glad justice is being done. But damage is still done. You understand what I'm saying? Damage is still done. And we can be happy that justice is being carried out and that wickedness is no longer going to be a threat to anybody else. But at the same time, this is still a person who is going to be extinguished. All right, and so I think, you remember when John said it was bittersweet, he ate the book and it was bittersweet. I think this is part of it, is that he sees his fellow man, look, they're going to be extinguished. All right, and so they're praising. And then in verse 21, man, okay, I'm trying to hurry, okay? I want to get through this chapter. All right, and then the judgment is administered. Go down to verse number 21. It says, "And the mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all." This is a destruction almost like Sodom and Gomorrah. If you go back and read Sodom and Gomorrah, it's going to be destruction on that scale. And actually, it mentions a millstone again. But I want you to imagine if you threw a millstone. Everybody knows what a millstone is, right? It's what they used to grind. They used to grind grain with. Something big. We had mill houses here. Like in the water would turn the mill. You know what I mean? And that's a millstone. So let's just say you throw one of those into the ocean real deep, in the deep ocean. What happens with it? It goes and it keeps sinking. It finally disappears. It's gone. You're not going to find it. All right? Well, this is what's happening to Babylon. It's being thrown and it's going to disappear into the depths, never to be recovered, never to return, never to again do business again. Let's go back. Where am I at? Where do I stop? 22. "And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters and shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee." So anyway, the sound of the millstone, this is factories. All right, the sound of the millstone. These are factories. This is labor. This is work going on. What happens when you walk into a factory around here or a business around here? What happens? I mean, there's something humming. There's something going. And he's saying you're not going to hear that sound anymore. It's done. It's over. And then it says, "And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee." There's going to be darkness. "And the voice of the bridegroom and bride shall be heard no more at all in thee." And there's no more weddings. Weddings are usually in a society one of the happiest times. All right? And so, now there are exceptions to that, shotgun weddings and stuff like that. But typically that's one of the most joyous times and the most joyous occasions. And there's not going to be any more of that. There's not going to be any joy. There's not going to be music. There's not going to be any singing. There's not going to be any happiness. There's not any of that anymore. "For thy merchants, there were great men of the earth, for by their sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth." Again, why is this happening? Why is all this happening? It's because they have rejected the message of the prophets. And then the saints. That's Old Testament, New Testament. All right? That's what that is. They've rejected the message of truth. They've rejected the message of Jesus Christ. They have killed the prophets. They've killed the saints. And their blood is now on their hands. And they're responsible for that. And now God is paying them double. And he's undermining the whole economic system. Everything that they had their faith in and had their trust in behind the Antichrist is going to be gone, utterly destroyed. Not to be remembered again, not to be brought up ever again. This is the end of the economic system, the worldwide economic system in totality. All right? Does that make sense? So that one was pretty easy, right? That chapter was pretty easy to get through. And that's why I kind of hurried through that tonight to get through that. And then we'll get to the political wing now. All right, next time. All right, next time, the political side of that. So, all right, so Babylon being destroyed, the religious side, and now the economic side. Then we'll get to the political side. All right. Everybody straight on that? All right, so all right, let's bow for a word of prayer. Father, we love you again. I'm grateful for all that you've done for us. And